Hello and welcome to the Calling the Real You podcast. I'm your host, Pamella Horton, and today we are talking with Dr. Sangeeta Sahi. And we are going to be discussing quite a fascinating topic, and I have to mention that Dr. Sangeeta Sahi is also fascinating, mesmerizing, in fact, brilliant, and I am absolutely thrilled and honored that she has joined us. You are all in for a wonderful treat. We're going to be discussing conscious cancer and learning about Dr. Sahi's journey and the language that we use and just a wonderful, deep conversation. Dr. Sangeeta, are you there?
I am, Pamela. Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Thank you. So everyone who's listening, welcome again. Dr. Sahi has been conventionally trained in Western medicine, and she is strongly influenced by principles of spirituality and esoteric metaphysics, and that's why I find her so fascinating. She's got the science behind her and the metaphysics behind her. And Dr. Sangeeta, please share what's your journey been like?
Okay, wow. In a few minutes, let me share the nuggets of my life's journey so far. So as you quite rightly said, I'm trained in conventional allopathic Western medicine, and I come from 4 generations of medical doctors. I was born in New Delhi, India, so I'm of Indian origin, but I grew up in London, UK, United Kingdom. And my parents, they're both doctors. My father's an ophthalmologist and my mother's a gynecologist. And my grandparents were both doctors. And my great-grandfather, he was a homeopathic doctor. And to be honest, I never met him, but I think that he's probably on a kind of non-physical level, probably had the most influence on me in terms of how I work and how I've been working most of my life. So it's been kind of an integration of everything in terms of the Western medical side and my great grandfather. He was living and practicing in Lahore, which was then part of United India, and today, of course, Lahore is part of Pakistan. And he'd written 12 volumes of books on homeopathic medicine. And he was really a kind of, I would say, a visionary, because he, at that time, was writing his own newsletters to his patients and his clients, and that was incredible, considering that we certainly didn't have any of the social media and technology and communication systems that we have available to us today. And he was also making his own remedies, and he was educating his patients and clients about health, how disease originates, and about food, about nutrition, about lifestyle, and all sorts of the things that, today may come under the paradigm of either integrative medicine or functional medicine or all these new kind of labels. But he was doing that very naturally in those days. And I don't know how many of your listeners or you are familiar with homeopathic medicine, but homeopathy is really the technology behind it is it works on the subtle physical level. So we've got like the very solid physical, and then we've got the subtle physical, which is actually, I see, as a bridge between our physical material world and the non-physical, maybe metaphysical or spiritual realms. And homeopathy is a kind of conduit and a bridge into those realms, and also in the other way, it's a conduit for the spiritual kind of realms to interact with the physical and to help the physical to alleviate some of the stresses and strains and the imbalances that occur in the physical. So I know that, when I was studying medicine, and I I did my degree in India. I studied in London. I went to school here, but I did my degree in India. And it was the most incredible thing that I could have done, because I went to a medical school, which was probably the third best med school in the whole of India. And that's a big deal. Christian Medical College. And there were just 25 girls and 25 boys in each year. So we already had a very balanced gender bias. There was no gender bias. I mean, it was very balanced. And because the classes were small, we got to learn a lot, and very intensively, because of the diversity and variety of problems, diseases, imbalances that you get to see in that population. So it was, for me, the best training ground and the best laboratory. And I really experienced a lot there, a lot of stuff that I didn't really understand while I was at med school, while I was in the clinical years, because there were kind of, I guess, metaphysical experiences, because people they were coming to see me, they were having spontaneous healings that we would call spontaneous healings nowadays. And I was quite scientifically oriented, even though I must say I just want to rewind a little bit and tell you about my teenage years in London. It was a very interesting time for me, because I was very, very much into kind of reading a lot about spirituality. In my family, we kind of grew up with the books, the spiritual texts like the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedas or the Upanishads, and even the religious books of the Bible and the Quran and the Kabbalah. So I kind of grew up already knowing about a lot of this, and it wasn't really unusual, because there was a merging of the kind of Western religions and the Eastern religions with the philosophies of the Far East too. So it was normal, and I was having very clearly some very interesting kind of experiences in what today people are talking about as interdimensional traveling. So going into different spaces, different time zones, different dimensions that were not maybe part of the physical realm, connecting up with them and experiencing things in those dimensions and then coming back. I just put it down to having a very, very strong imagination. But I realized later, when I really started researching and experiencing spirituality and metaphysics with different teachers who were incredible, after I finished med school, I realized that actually this is not my imagination at all. It was something that I had already been open to experiencing, or I already had the design to experience. And I didn't really understand what I was experiencing, so what I wanted to do, and I also didn't really understand what was going on, what I experienced and what I saw during my clinical years in medical school with spontaneous healings and spontaneous remissions. So I really wanted to explore that in a more conscious and, if I'm honest, in a more kind of scientifically observership way. So after I finished med school, I kind of started learning about the different spiritual modalities, and I worked with some very, very authentic and amazing spiritual teachers. Quite a few of them are they're not on the planet anymore. They've kind of, they've transitioned, and they were really very genuine, very, very experienced and very wonderful, wonderful teachers that I'm very, very blessed and honored to know. And the experiences that I had with them, I completely embraced as being absolutely real. So I wasn't satisfied with that. That was a very, very right-brained kind of experience for me. And growing up in a sort of more of a scientific way, I'm not saying that my parents were totally left brain, not at all, because I think my parents in their own way are quite visionary. But I wanted to explore things a little bit more scientifically. So I had experiences and I'd traveled in a lot of different parts of the world while I was working with some of these spiritual teachers. And I'd also lived in America. And I went back to America to work with some quantum physicists and biophysicists in England. And I wanted to be able to kind of see what equipment was out there to be able to verify some of the spiritual experiences that I'd experienced anyway, to see what was happening and whether these scientists could give some sort of an explanation. And I realized that the only real scientific model that was even close to spirituality as a full integrated dimension was probably the model of quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And that I know, because I know that spirituality is everything. I mean, it's a huge, it's a dimension which incorporates everything, because by definition, it's non-physical. So everything comes through the non-physical into the physical. So actually, it has to pass through the spiritual dimensions before it becomes material. So science, by definition, is a material thing. It's an evidence-based, proof-based methodology. So science will never, ever be able to really reach the level of spirituality, but spirituality will always keep expanding, or our brains will keep expanding, so that there's a lot more that we need to know, so we will keep aspiring to know more. But the quantum physics model, it was an interesting model because it was logically consistent with what spirituality had already stated in some of these very, very ancient philosophies and books. Because I felt that actually most of the religious and spiritual and sacred books and the philosophies have kind of been saying the same things in a different packaging, depending on the times that they were revealed, or they were revealed to the mass consciousness. So they were all based on universal, they are all based on universal principles and rules and laws. And I realized actually the human being as a human physical model is also based on these universal laws, as is the cellular structure, the physical cellular structure. And quantum physics corroborates quite a bit of that. In its own model. It's theoretical, but it's consistently logical. So that interested me greatly, and there were quite a few experiments I did together with other physicists, and we were able to verify quite a few things that and confirm. And then I came back to England, and I studied something called psychoneuroendocrinoimmunology. That is basically the effect of thoughts on the immune system, the nervous system, and the endocrine system of the human being. And it gives a very nice biochemical axis model of how thoughts affect our physical bodies and the cells, and especially our immune systems, and of course the whole being. So this was perfect. And then I sort of added on another part to it, which is if you go beyond thought into the realm of consciousness. So in the work that I do, I also add in how consciousness affects thoughts and how that affects the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the immune system of the body. So using all of that model, I've been teaching quite a lot for a number of years. And a lot of my teaching started off with talking about the subconscious mind it was all mind-based teaching at that time, and how the subconscious mind actually affects the physical body, and how it brings up imbalances and disease states, because the subconscious is obviously directly connected with the emotional body, and the physical and the emotional body are very, very in tune with each other. They're constantly interacting. Just like the mental body and the spiritual body are quite connected, well, the whole being is then a unit that connects up with physical life and the planet and nature and reality. So we have this whole complex organizational model. And this is actually, after I learned a lot of what was going on and taught a lot, because I learned an enormous amount from practice and from my own patients and clients and my own students. And that was incredibly fulfilling. And through that, I realized my work also, my work expanded, and it evolved organically into then talking about the whole being. And I'm not talking about like holistic medicine or holistic life or holistic living. I'm actually talking about a totality of existence, because it's really important nowadays, because we're all talking about, or many more people than ever before on the planet are talking about oneness. And they're talking about, and it's being talked about how, we're all connected with each other, even though we may not realize it directly. But there is this incredible network, non-physical network, spiritual networks, connecting us all together. And of course, social media and the internet and all this technology is indicative and kind of proof of that. But we're also connected up with the universe and different planets and different solar systems, because our planet is connected up with different planets, and it's being influenced constantly by different planets and different solar systems and our universe. So we are a part of this planet, because our physical bodies are actually made up of the same elements and the same structures and substances that this planet is, which means that whether we're directly connected to universal forces or not, we are indirectly connected, because direct connection just means being aware that we are directly connected to these universal elements and influences. But indirect connection means that when we may not be fully conscious or aware of it, but we are being influenced by it anyway. So this is how my work evolved, and how I started to look at physical body, disease imbalances, and life in a very, very different way to a lot of, obviously, doctors and a lot of people as well. And I realized that it was going to continue, because a lot of the medical profession does not have this element of including these other factors and influences. It's a very structured and strict system, which is now beginning to accept the emotions as very much a part of what affects the physical cellular structure. And a few pockets of medical doctors, they are talking about thoughts. But I don't find anybody that I've come across, except I have found in the old Ayurvedic teachings, and probably the teachings of the Chinese, the Chinese doctors and the Chinese medical system, health system, ancient Chinese, not the modern Chinese, where they're again starting to look at other influences, because there are so many chronic degenerative disease states that we're experiencing as human beings, as a human collective, that medicine, at least Western medicine, is not able to address or to treat. So, of course, when we come to a stage like this in human history, we start looking back and start looking at, well, what else is going on? And I think I've been doing that a while ago. That's all.
Yeah, Sangeeta, you've worked with thousands of people specifically experiencing cancer. Can you talk about what conscious cancer is and how you've integrated everything you've learned, experienced so far in helping people transition from, really transition from the traditional way of treating cancer to transcend that type of modality?
Absolutely. So, okay, what I was seeing is that because of whatever is going on a planetary level and the influences that we have from new cosmic energies, frequencies, etc., that there was an epidemic of autoimmune diseases and especially cancer. So space is basically radioactive, and we as human beings, our planet lives in space. Its home is space, and we live on this planet. So we are actually by nature radioactive. And as these new energies start to come down and to influence and to infiltrate the planetary atmosphere, the Earth's atmosphere, they start to affect, and the first influence that they have is on the human immune system. So as soon as the immune system experiences something new or unfamiliar, it is designed to react through protective defense mechanisms. So the immune system goes on high alert. It starts to secrete different chemicals and hormones, etc., which start to then respond and react to whatever this new influence is. Now, if this influence is not made familiar, i.e. accepted and integrated into the biological system that we are, then it becomes like an enemy. And the body starts treating it like an enemy. But it's actually the mind that has not accepted it. Because if the mind accepts something and filters it and says, okay, this is okay, we can manage this, then the body also starts to accept it and starts to produce different chemicals to be able to integrate this into the system. And if not, then the system gets upgraded. It's like a computer system. If we've got new software, I see a lot of these new energies and viruses, etc., as kind of as things that are allowing or directing our complex body system to upgrade. So as soon as we get an influence, it's a trigger for our software to be upgraded. And if you see, I always look at a body as like a biological computer. So if it requires an upgrade because it's the time and because that's how life is on the planet right now, that means that we're ready for that upgrade. Now, if we start going into a mode of fight, which is what I saw that many people who were not able to transcend, as I say, things like cancer or even autoimmune diseases or even chronic degenerative problems such as arthritis, such as multiple sclerosis, and a whole host of other gut issues and skin problems, etc., and allergies, then I realized that it's because there is a huge resistance. And this resistance has started creating an inner conflict within the human body and the human immune system. And if you watched, which I'm sure everybody knows, everybody is talking about waging war on cancer, terminating cancer, fighting cancer. And this, to me, is indicative of the war that's going on outside our bodies, in our environments, in our lives. So when you're stuck with inner conflict and inner war, you are not going to transcend anything. In order to transcend, you need to first make peace. Now, the mechanism of peace is absolutely incredible. We do not have any understanding of how real peace works and what effect it has, not just on our souls, but on our physical bodies and our physical cellular structures. So I designed this 13-step life, I called it a life recovery program, focused around the elements of peace, unity, harmony, and order. Because as the soul level goes into a space of real peace and acceptance, it then, the physical body starts, and the whole complex of emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual start creating a matrix within the physical system and the immune system of unity, harmony, and order. And this order is a new order through which the body can actually transcend any disease state and any emotional state that is causing stress. So basically, the Conscious Cancer program, I called it Conscious Cancer. That was inspired. And I realized that even that, as soon as I kept saying the title Conscious Cancer, people were triggered. Some people had like a very, a kind of fear response to it. And other people were like, this is really interesting. What's this about then? So automatically, people are kind of, in a way, selecting themselves through the responses that they have of the mind, even with the title. So this Conscious Cancer program is actually a beautiful now audio online program available from my website, genuinehumanbeing.com. And this is literally a technology. It's been coded as you go through the steps. You follow the instructions, you will have experiences in your physical life. And these experiences encompass every part of your life. Your relationships, your physical health, your nutrition, your diet, your lifestyle, your thoughts, your conscience, your family relationships, your extended family relationships, your work relationships, and your purpose. Because the end steps are actually about aligning and understanding and realizing very consciously what is your purpose in this lifetime. Beyond after you started fully engaging with life and realized that actually disease is an illusion. It's just a journey for you to get somewhere else. That was the whole concept behind Conscious Cancer. And it's not just for people with cancer. It's for people suffering from any autoimmune disease, or actually people who want to know and realize and have one of the comments that has been coming over and over again with people who've used this program is that they get an incredible increase in self-awareness and realization. And realization creates transcendence. It actually allows the brain to open up to new possibilities. Actually, not even possibilities. It just literally steps up the whole being into another realm of existence and way of existence. And this technology is based on universal laws. And that's why it's a technology, because it's completely in harmony with universal laws and truths. So it's very easy, and it's very, very, It's a simple approach that once you just use the technology and start working with it, it starts to work with you because it has a consciousness of its own when it's interacting with your consciousness. So it's very individual program as well as a private program, and of course a personal program, and of course people who want to have some facilitation and guidance and want to have greater, more deeper help, more profound help. I always work with them personally as well.
Yeah, I experienced a session with you, not necessarily related to conscious cancer, but I find you fascinating. I find you very compelling. Your work is very compelling to me, and I feel like we're actually out of time, and I would love to have you back on and just to further the discussion with you, Sangeeta. Would you join me another time?
Oh, it would be a pleasure, Pamela. There's so much to share.
This is important information. It's a new way of thinking for many people. Some people have already began to scratch the surface, but I do invite you all to visit Dr. Sangeeta Sahi's website, and that again is actually thegenuinehumanbeing.com, correct?
Correct.
And I will have a link associated in the write-up as well for you to check out the specific program itself, Conscious Cancer. Sangeeta, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. I do look forward to interviewing you again in the future. I do have a few folks that I wish to thank, and before we go, and that is, of course, Reverend Patricia Brooks with her Sacred Stories platform. Without her, this podcast would not be possible. And Lisa Imperante of Lux Salon and Spa, Yola Portraits, Karen DeFelice Designs, and the music by Jim Oliver. Again, Sangeeta, thank you so much for giving of yourself today. It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm looking forward to spending and sharing more time and energy with you at another day.
I thank you, Pamela, and lots of joy and blessings to your listeners.
Thank you. Have a great week, everyone. Remember, call the real you out each and every day.